Your child should never feel like loving the other parent hurts your feelings. You can tell your child, you're allowed to love both of us without paying for it emotionally. You never, ever have to choose sides. They need to hear those words from you. Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening to the Ask Mom Parenting podcast, where we take the mystery and the yelling out of modern parenting and offer real life help for parents. I'm Sue, and with me is Randy. And whether you're knee deep in the toddler tantrums, navigating tween and teen drama, or somewhere in between, you'll get clarity and actionable tools one episode at a time. If you'd like to support us and our podcast, please share it with another parent or leave us a rating and review. So co-parenting, co-parenting is one of these topics that people love to oversimplify. They say, just put the kids first. Okay. Of course, yeah, that sounds reasonable and doable, but when there's history between two people, it's not always that clean. You have emotions, old wounds, different parenting styles, daily stress. There may be resentment or disappointment, and one parent usually communicates better than the other. When emotions are high, trust is usually low. And when two homes are trying to raise the same child with different rhythms, suddenly the whole put the kids first advice just feels impossible to achieve and even dismissive to how difficult co-parenting really is in real life. Something simple like a schedule change or a school update or a forgotten sweatshirt can become a lot more dramatic than it needs to be. Co-parenting often means learning how to keep your adult tension from becoming your child's burden. We don't have to pretend that co-parenting should be easy, but when it's messy, the best way forward is to manage the parts that are only yours to manage. In today's episode, co-parenting when it's messy and how to keep your child out of the middle, we're going to cover the specific ways to parent confidently from your own front porch and not chase the chaos down the street. Today, we're making this subject super practical, focusing on managing what's yours to control and making sure that your child does not become the emotional middleman.
Yeah, I definitely understand this topic. So my parents, they're still together to this day, but when I was a kid, they actually separated for about a year. They went through the whole legal separation process before reconciliation. So there was definitely we had some things involved like agreements and things like that. So I just remember co-parenting was not always the easiest. I would say it was probably like 50-50. Because like you said, it's easy to say, oh, let the kids come first. And there are definitely moments where, my parents did, but people are human. And there are times, like you said, the emotions run high. And so even though my parents eventually got back together, their time apart was tricky. I was like 10, 11 years old. So I was like old enough to have a little bit of a voice and also be around to see and notice everything that was going on. I now have friends who are trying to co parent, and I can definitely see how complicated it gets when there are two homes, different routines, emotions running high. What I've noticed is a lot of the conflict seems to be like when parents worry about what's going on in the other home or feel like, I'm doing something in my house, they're doing something else there, and really feeling like, oh, the homes should probably operate exactly the same, which seems completely impossible. So how do you suggest parents approach that?
Well, actually, real quick, when your parents, how long was it before your parents got back together?
Like a year, a little more than a
Oh,
year.
and then
Like,
what do you remember thinking or feeling when that happened?
I remember being relieved, quite
Oh,
honestly.
really? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
well,
that
of
sense,
course. I mean, that makes sense.
yeah, because it was that sense of like, the kind of, there was like the back and forth a little bit, and just not having to split the time or be the middleman. Honestly, like
Mhm.
you talked about, so I'm really glad you're going to touch on that because it wasn't always the case, but there were definitely times like you do feel stuck in the middle. And I remember being like, oh, okay, so they're getting back together, they've worked out their issues, so now I don't have to be that middleman anymore.
Kids
Um,
take that on, and it's so invisible
Mhm.
for a parent because we don't really see just how perceptive our kids are, and they do take it on. Even no matter how hard you try for them not to, it does still occur to where they're taking it, they're internalizing every fight, every bad mood. the difference between the two homes. They just are going to take it on, even if you were to do everything in what people might think would be a perfect way. It's still a difficult situation for them. I'm the opposite. I remember back in the day, divorces weren't really as popular back then, when I was younger. But I remember my grandma used to babysit a family where the parents were divorced, and she'd tell me about all the trouble the kids were getting in, these three boys. And I was probably 8 or so, and I remember thinking, I wish my parents would get divorced because they're getting everything they want. Of course, now I look back, of course, and realize that would have been horrible. And I don't mean to minimize it by anybody, but it's just funny kids' perspectives and what they see and what they experience. But my mom and dad would have been horrified to think that I was thinking that. But it's just there's a lot of private thoughts that go on with kids and how they feel about this big upheaval. So
Mhm.
today I'm going to give 5 shifts that change the way you think about co-parenting. Okay, so number one, is that you trying to run both homes? That's number one. And number two, how carving your own lane keeps your child out of the middle. Number three, ways to protect your child's emotional safety. And number four, how to use facts instead of fireworks to get your ex to cooperate. And last, number five, the quickest way to ground yourself when co-parenting goes sideways. So let's get started. Okay, shift number one. Is that you trying to run both homes? I see you. I see you doing it because that would have been me. Co-parenting can feel like you're constantly reacting to someone else's choices. Today, let's step out of that loop. We're not trying to fix the other house. We're not rewriting the past or controlling everyone's decisions. We're focusing on what you can do in the moment that is before you. So much of co-parenting conflict comes from one parent trying to manage what happens in the other home. It's understandable. You want what you think is important, like bedtime, discipline, rules, boundaries, to be mirrored in the other home. But kids can handle different rules in different places if at least one home is predictable and safe. Never underestimate, like we said earlier, the perceptiveness and adaptability and intelligence of your child. They're already doing this in life. School has different rules than grandma's house. Sports have different rules than your house. Kids are capable of adjusting and assessing what's expected from each parent and in each home, especially when at least one adult is very clear in what they expect. The real problem isn't when the other house is different. Okay. It's when the child feels like they have to emotionally manage those differences. So for your home, simply make your space the one that's dependable with ease of solitude and safety for your child. That's where your greatest strength is built. The home base rules. Your home is the place where your child knows this is how we do bedtime here. This is how we handle homework here. This is how we speak to each other here. This is what happens when I cross the line here. Your ex does not need to be a great parent in order for you to parent well. Your child benefits immensely when you stop trying to win the comparison game and start consistently creating the culture of your own home with the same intentions every day. You'll say this on repeat unapologetically, like it's stamped on your forehead until you stop getting asked. Different homes, different routines. This is how we do it here. That's it. Your child doesn't need to know anything else. Different home, I acknowledge that. Different routine. Yes, we do things differently, but this is how we do it. I'm unapologetic about that. Shift number two, how carving your own lane keeps your child out of the middle. And this is where my magic mantra becomes incredibly useful. I am only in charge of me. I am not in charge of you. I have talked about this in so many other episodes. I wrote about it in my book. And because, once this mantra really clicks, it changes everything, truly. That one sentence is an instant boundary creator. It's a priority filter and a nervous system reset all in one. It reminds you of what's only yours, your words, your tone, your home, your boundaries, and your follow through. And it reminds you of what's not yours, your ex's mood, their choices, their parenting style, their drama, or their chaos. Because in co-parenting, if you don't draw that line of what you're in charge of in your own mind, you're going to spend your time carrying all the emotional baggage that someone else packed for themselves. This mantra helps you stop absorbing what isn't yours to solve. And it's basically your get out of drama free card. So in co-parenting, the mantra becomes I'm in charge of my home, my words, my tone, my boundaries, and my follow through. And that is it. That is your new beautiful boundary that you create for yourself. And when you truly live that, you give your child something incredibly powerful, an example of emotional resilience in real time. Because your child may not remember every schedule change, every disagreement, or even every messy moment between the homes. But trust me, they will remember how you handled it. They will remember whether you pulled them into the tension or protected them from it. They will remember when you tried to control everyone else or stayed grounded in what was yours to lead. They will remember whether your home felt like another battlefield or a place that they could come and exhale. So before reacting, try asking yourself, is this mine to solve, mine to say, or mine to release? There's a super simple exercise that I do in some of my workshops, and it's 3 circles of co-parenting. You simply draw 3 circles and label one mine, another one shared facts, and a third one not mine to manage. In number one, your rules, your tone, your repair, your follow through, all of those things go in number one. Those are yours. And number two, shared facts. And I use the word facts on purpose. Okay, that's intentional. In circle two goes school, schedules, medical needs, activities, facts only. And in number three, there's your ex's rhythm, their personality, their parenting style, or their willingness to do things your way. So whenever something sticky comes up, find a circle to put it in. But now note, okay, the temptation is in circle two, what's shared is strictly for facts only, okay? It's only the things that affect your child's care, not your opinions, not your old arguments, not emotional commentary. And I see you all, thinking that you can stuff in circle two all the old patterns, okay? But that's only for facts. Scribbling out this little exercise really helps clarify what is yours to spend energy on.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I love that little exercise. Something that I'm thinking about right now and had a question for you is I feel like when I see and talk to parents who I know who are co-parenting, well, a big goal of theirs is to keep the child, out of the middle of the adult drama. And the focus really is trying to make sure that their kids are emotionally safe and healthy. What do you suggest parents can do to help ensure that happens?
Well, usually you're the one that brings me the research and you are hitting it, like as always, hitting it on the head because emotional safety is one of the top priorities when you're in counseling or you're getting any professional help. Emotional safety is the number one thing. If you're working with mediators, I have a mediator that I work with locally where she has to stop short of actually giving them parenting advice, but usually they're in a divorce and it's contentious. And so she does pass a lot of people to me when they're in that fight and struggle among each other. And so my shift number 3 is the ways to protect your child's emotional safety. Because again, that's the number one thing that we really need to focus on in a co-parent situation. This is the heart of the whole conversation and probably really the most important work you can do in co-parenting. Kids need emotional safety more than they need houses to match. And emotional safety is not created by pretending that everything is fine. Okay. Kids will sniff immediately through that facade. It's created when your child feels free to be themselves and move between the homes without carrying adult tension. And if that emotional safety only exists in your home right now, that's it, then that's the environment that you protect. And here is what emotional safety looks like in 3 topics. Okay. Number one, give kids the permission to love both parents. As hard as it is, you are dealing with all of your emotional trauma and all the things that you've been through. There's rejection, there's sadness, there's all of these things that your child has no visibility of. So it is okay to separate yourself from that and allow your child to love both of you. Your child should never feel like loving the other parent hurts your feelings. You can tell your child, you're allowed to love both of us without paying for it emotionally. You never, ever have to choose sides. They need to hear those words from you, and then you need to, try to live those. I know it's hard. And if they come home happy, let them be happy. Don't make them diminish their joy to protect your feelings. Topic two for emotional safety is there's no messenger jobs and no emotional spying, as tempting as it is. We're not getting kids involved in adult conversations. We're not so embroiled in what the other person is doing that we can't just talk to our ex ourselves. There's no, hey, tell your dad this or ask your mom why. That's emotional immaturity, honestly. And you're having adult communication and adults need to deliver it. The kids are not carrying our mail. A simple boundary for that would be, hey, that's something I'll talk to your mom or dad about. You don't need to solve that. Kids need to be told, not yours to worry about, adult conversation, not yours to solve. Really simple. And the same goes for emotional spying. Instead of like, hey, what did he say? Was she there? Did they talk about me? Are you staying up late there at the house? Just ask them, hey, how did the weekend feel for you? And let them talk and just listen. No judgment and no emotional baggage on our end. And the third topic is predictable routines create emotional safety. The routines do not need to match between homes. They just have to be clear in yours. Kids need to know what happens when they return to your home every time. I love a transition ritual. Something simple. After the switch, maybe the child gets a snack, unpacks their bag, and then has 10 to 15 minutes of quiet time to go be alone or walk around the block with you and just talk about nothing. There's no big emotional debrief, not tell me everything that happened over there, just a very simple reset at your home. Like I said before, where it's where they exhale and it's where they get their solitude. You might just say, hey, I'm so glad you're home. Take a few minutes to land and then we'll unpack your bag. That phrase using the word home is intentional. Okay. It sets the tone that the child is home with you. And take a few minutes to land is just that feeling again of that big exhale with no pressure or judgment.
I know communication is one of the biggest concerns people have with co-parenting, and I remember how hard that could be, with my own parents separated. And I can only imagine when emotions really run high, how that communication piece can be. What are some ways that parents can communicate more calmly and keep the conversation focused on the child instead of, maybe some conflict or emotions running high?
This is really important. And I do coach quite a few families who, going through divorces, but I don't know why the word narcissism keeps coming up everywhere, but there seem to be a lot of narcissists being raised. I don't know, but a lot of the moms and guys, the dads that I've coached are dealing with exes that emotionally hijacking people. Okay. So I've really done a lot of deep diving and research into those types of personality traits, but I also have been able to see how communication can be weaponized. And so number four is really important. It's how to use facts instead of fireworks to get cooperation from your ex. Okay, so keeping communication with facts instead of fireworks is one of the best ways to lower the temperature in co-parenting communication. A lot of single parents that I work with are dealing with an ex who deflects or blames or avoids accountability and turns every simple exchange into an emotional hostage situation. And when that's the pattern, you cannot communicate from a wound or expect peace ever. Just lower that expectation. You need a style of communication that is clear, boring, and almost impossible to argue with. And that means facts only. Those who avoid accountability, they use words as their weapon of choice. They tend to be very verbose and they write very long paragraphs. And in the paragraph are landmines meant to have you defend your character and they put you on the defensive. This is all, and I'm not even saying this is something that they do intentionally. I think it's just a skill that they've acquired through maybe their upbringing or their trauma. And it's something that they've become adept at. It's a skill that they have, is communicating to where you're always on the defensive. And once you can spot these patterns in communication, especially over text, it's going to become almost comical because it's so predictable that their communication is sucking you in. Okay. But until you get to that point, here is your way forward. A tool that I like to teach parents is the 1 to 3 sentence rule. Okay. When you're communicating, when things are tense and you want to keep messages no more than 1 to 3 parts. So, number one would be the fact: Emma has a dentist appointment on Tuesday at 3. The need. Okay, so the fact, now the need. She will need to be picked up at 2:30 from school. And then the close. Please confirm whether you are able to take her. And that is it. Facts, that's it. Okay. No history, no sarcasm, no as usual, no, you never ever get her on time. Are you sure you can get her? You never do, none of this. We're just sticking to facts. Because the longer the message, the more doors you open for conflict. And if they come back with a reply outside of the simple answer, like, yes, I can, whatever, you simply circle back to your facts and keeping it neutral. So, an example: Jack's teacher emailed about the missing assignment. I'll have him work on it tonight. Please let me know if he already completed it at your house. Okay. That is child focused. It's neutral. It's useful. Now compare that to Jack is behind again because there's never any structure at your house. I know that's satisfying that for like 8 seconds, you're like, oh, I got it. I got to dig on him. Believe me, I know. But it doesn't solve the problem. Okay. This little dig is not going to magically change this person's behavior. Your little passive aggressive responses or your extra communication outside the facts is never going to change a single thing. Because if it did, they would have worked, months and years ago. Okay. If there's any safety issue or neglect or abuse or legal violations, that's for professional support. And those can be handled through appropriate channels. But for everyday friction, don't build your entire parenting life around the other side's lack of cooperation. You're only in charge of you, no one else. You're in charge of your communication and how succinctly and factually you use it. Here's a few more examples of my 3 sentence rule. The school concert was moved to 6. I'm sending you the updated flyer so we both have the same information. Done. For a health issue, Mia has a cough since yesterday. I gave her medicine at 7. Please keep an eye on it. All right. Or for school, the teacher said the science project is due Friday. I'll help him with the research tonight. He may need to finish the poster at your house. Done. Easy. Shift 5. The last one is the quickest way to ground yourself when co-parenting goes sideways. When co-parenting becomes emotionally heightened, use this filter to quickly prioritize your response. Just one little question to yourself. Am I helping my child or am I trying to win? That's it. Because in co-parenting, trying to win usually pulls you right back into that non-factual communication where you're trying to control the other house. That's not using the magic mantra that I'm only in charge of me, I'm not in charge of you, right? So am I trying to help my child? Is this helping my child? Or am I just trying to win this argument? Trying to win sounds something like, this is exactly why I told you not for her to stay up late. Okay. Notice how well I do that. He wouldn't be behind if you had a boundary or two. And, those easily roll off my tongue because like I understand the temptation. I've had those sentences practiced and ready to launch myself until I learned about behavioral psychology and how to better communicate. But maybe being right is not the win that we think it is. Helping your child versus winning brings us back to the magic mantra. I'm only in charge of me, I'm not in charge of you. So instead of trying to prove what went wrong over there, I'm bringing my attention back to what I can lead over here. If I notice that my daughter had a hard time getting up this morning, I will move her bedtime to earlier tonight. If I see that his homework isn't finished, I'll set up 20 minutes of quiet work time at home after dinner. If he came back to me overstimulated, we'll do food, shower, and a calm reset before anything else. That is the difference. Winning tries to expose the other parent, which again changes nothing. Helping focuses on what your child actually needs next. So the real power in co-parenting is not getting the other parent to finally do it your way. It's in putting your energy where you actually have influence and refusing to hand your child the emotional bill for adult conflict. If this episode helped you, please send it to another parent who's trying to co-parent without losing their mind or putting their child in the middle. And if you want more practical parenting tools for building calmer homes, stronger boundaries, and kids who feel safe without running the show, make sure you're subscribed to the Ask Mom Parenting podcast or pick up my best-selling parenting book, Secrets to Parenting Without Giving a Fuck, on Amazon. Thank you for listening and happy parenting.